Hi, Wayne Biebel here. This is my final presentation for ARC502 in spring semester of 2025 in Elizabeth McLean's section. Crenshaw Pines is a proposed elementary school that would reside within the jurisdiction of the Los Angeles Unified School District. Crenshaw, also known as Leimert Park, is a very vibrant, rich, diverse community in the south central area of Los Angeles. The average age in Los Angeles is 37, which means there's a lot of young families. In Leimert Park specifically, 11% of the total population is newborn to 9 years old, which means there's a critical need for early and elementary education. Further increasing that need is the fact that the Unified School District of LA has lowered the entry age to young individuals into pre-K programs, as well as extend the start times in the school district for easier transportation needs of young families. And these are all cultural contexts that Crenshaw Pines seeks to respond to. I began my precedent analysis with the Open School in Amsterdam, which was completed in 1930, and a functionalist piece of architecture that really was looking ahead of its time and looking into health and well-being in architecture, as well as the fact that early age development really should be placed in a joyful, warm, nourishing environment. Also, it should be protective. So what I really liked about this was that this common vernacular in Amsterdam, these courtyard blocks, these apartment buildings, the elementary school is placed within the courtyard with a kind of like a guardhouse, and it's kind of cordoned off and has very direct access, is seen but not seen. I really enjoyed this with integration within the grid. My curiosity piqued, and I also investigated a very famous school that was shot extensively in cinema and television over the years, and this is Ulysses S. Grant. I felt like I wanted to understand a little more about what the legacy schools were like in Los Angeles, and to no surprise, they're very active and engaged programs with very dynamic landscapes, covered walkways, sky bridges connecting buildings, open air lunch pavilions, standalone gyms, and kind of extended grounds. Yet it's still very cordoned off and regimented, like I said, fitting within the overall 1 mile square block grids of the Los Angeles urbanscape. Los Angeles is famous for its beautiful weather, pretty much sunny skies all year round, average mid 70s, east to west breeze off the ocean, but it's also known for earthquakes, fire hazard, and even some flash flooding. And so these factors are considered as well. As mentioned before, Crenshaw is a very kind of rich, diverse neighborhood with an eclectic history, but really is just central to LA in a lot of ways. And the Crenshaw corridor really comes through this neighborhood, and the site is located in a very accessible, connected way to the local community, and that is something that I think is a great benefit to the site. Though the overall pedagogical programming is somewhat standardized, it's a dual-loaded corridor in L form, very much like the Ulysses S. Grant Legacy School. We can see that the corridors are expanded with gaps to increase kind of spillover, class porosity, collaborative project-based learning. And these expanded corridors also increase kind of flow for egress and overall site circulation. And it also will come in handy with the MEP, as we'll see later down the road. Key features that I enjoy about the programming in this setup is the multi-story kind of centralized cafe halls, and these are also meant, the upstairs kitchen is kind of like an a la carte secondary overspill, but also a learning kitchen where students can engage with their food in an educational manner. Here we can see overall site circulation as it responds to the community. And something I'd like to point out here is that, the bus lane really is kind of a crucial part to the overall program. And it's, again, in response to the need for transportation. And this bus lane can fit comfortably 12 full-size buses. It will also act as a porous pathway that will kind of help with water flow in those 100-year flood situations. Also, the solar orientation is again piggybacked right off that Ulysses S. Grant High School. We're just kind of chopping it into 1/4 of the school and condensing the auxiliary buildings. We can see the MEP overall layout here. There's a mechanical basement and access to the water mains, but then kind of just branching out in an organic manner from the central locations with enough spacing for exhaust and chilling. Again, the plans are somewhat repetitive. In here on the roof plan, we have 2 shaded pavilions, and these are kind of open air educational spaces, and we have about 3,500 square feet of vegetable beds for project learning on the top of the roof, which also offers beautiful views of the city and the ocean. The school and elevation. Structurally, we have a combination foundation with the basement mechanical room, stem wall, with also, footed slabs on grades with CLT and mass timber structures. While in development, I became aware of what is known as the re-entrant corner, shear weakness due to the center of gravity during earthquakes and shifting plate tectonics. And so I moved the CLT vertical circulation core masses essentially closer to that center of gravity and developed a mass timber chevron bracing element that kind of hugs and supports that corner. This also gives us the opportunity for the stairwell to become a light monitor and the facade to kind of, again, ease egress and also open up the center of that school and that circulation to passive solar in the winter months. I'd like to take note of site porosity in this diagram. Again, we have that 100-year flood map, which puts us at risk. And so the porous bus lane, the porous landscape, the roof capture, rain capture system all feed into an underground water vault that is strategically located to mitigate those storm waters and retain water for fire risk emergency or drought emergencies. Building orientation and hierarchy plays a lot in shading and cross ventilation within the site program. Nonetheless, passive shading structures were needed for southern and western exposure on the interior classroom windows. And so I chose to use an active system, photovoltaic solar panels, as the passive shade system. These are not dynamic, they're just oriented for general capture and lightweight, simple structures that kind of dual function, passive, active, and give us the opportunity to reclaim that roof space for pedagogical exterior educational space as well. Curtain wall glazing systems are structurally held up by a wooden frame with very deep vertical mullions that act as solar fins or shading fins or thermal capture as well to help regulate thermal and solar intake. The MEP mechanical room in the basement, simplified, centralized, and separated. Here we see typical MEP integration. We also see the radiant slab, which works in conjunction with the thermal capabilities and regulatory nature of that wood thermal massing. Concept being that, once the mass is, it's a steadier, more regulated thermal distribution for comfort. Obviously, we know that heat rises and the cool sinks, and so during the summer months, air conditioning would come in and wash over the classroom and recirculate, cooling down, and vice versa. The heat would come up and be circulated with cool air and regulated. Here are some views of the school. Rooftop gardens, the bus lane, the central circulation in the main building, a common core space, walking to the gymnasium, in the gymnasium, and the lunch line. Thank you.